This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We have a very important guest coming on, JUDY MIKOVITS, who with her co-author, Kent Henkin-Lively, has just come out with a book, Plague of Corruption. Now, they're going to both be on next week, but Judy's on this week, and we're going to get into the whole coronavirus thing and the misinformation that's being provided about how it's spread, how you deal with it with regard to vaccines. So stay tuned for that. But let me start right off the bat. Antifa has become the boogeyman of all of the violence, all of the mayhem, the theft, and everything else that's going on in the country. And certainly they are a large portion of that. They are most likely funded by people like Soros or the communist Chinese or the Russians or whatever. Basically, they're there to cause insurrection. They're there to destroy the country, to bring the country down. The president has correctly declared them a domestic terrorist group. But there are more than just Antifa out there, for sure. And they need to be identified as well. That being said, your Freedom Watch already had a lawsuit pending against Antifa going back a year and a half to 2 years ago. I brought it on behalf of a very brave woman by the name of Chiara Robles. She's gay. She went to see Milo Yiannopoulos, the reporter from Breitbart at the time, who's also gay, and conservative, and she's conservative. She went to the Berkeley campus. She was attacked by Antifa. She was pepper sprayed. She was assaulted. And all the while, the Berkeley police force, both of the university and the city, stood around watching. Much has been happening lately with regard to the looting and mayhem and shooting of cops and everything else. Just stood around watching. She came to me, and I brought a lawsuit on her behalf. I brought it in the Northern District of California in federal court because that's in and around where she resides. And it was assigned to a judge by the name of Claudia Wilkins, who is a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley and also taught law school there for many, many years. It's a long story, and I talked a little bit about it on my podcast this week, which you can also get at freedomwatchusa.org. But this judge was extremely biased. She protected Berkeley. She dismissed Berkeley out of the case and ultimately even dismissed Antifa. I had one hearing, and during that hearing before her, and she was semi-hostile. She's been hostile in pleadings. Antifa members came in. I mean, it looked like a freak show. I mean, these people look like a clown. You know, there's various movies out there in Hollywood about clowns doing evil things. So maybe there was some symmetry here in that regard. But these are dangerous, dangerous people. And they were there to try to intimidate me, I felt, at the time. The case is now up on appeal because Judge Wilkins dismissed the case without cause. And you can watch that appeal this Monday on the 8th of June. Go to the website of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, and you can watch it in real time. But there's a case out there about this, and we're actually addressing Antifa. It's another example of how your Freedom Watch is way ahead of the curve. Ask yourself this question. What has our worthless Justice Department done with regard to Antifa other than simply to make statements? But we've been out there doing it as your Justice Department. Now, to add insult to injury, we've heard Antifa, 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 Antifa all week on Fox News, which used to be a conservative network. Do they mention a lawsuit brought by Chiara Robles and Larry Klayman by Freedom Watch on her behalf? Obviously not, because going back a long time when I represented some of the victims of Bill Clinton, who wound up getting defamed by Bill O'Reilly and smeared and all kinds of things, if you can believe that. I have been blackballed by Fox News. That's why you don't see me on there. It started with Roger Ailes. And now, of course, I represent Ailes' primary victim, Laurie Loon, who was sexually abused, harassed, and destroyed to the point of trying to attempt suicide on 2 occasions by Roger Ailes. And who covered it up at Fox News? The current CEO of Fox News, Suzanne Scott. In fact, she was an enabler of Roger Ailes. She actually used her own credit card to get hotel rooms for Ailes so he could work his sexual abuse on people like Laurie Loon and other women at Fox. That's why you don't hear any of this on Fox. And you would think that an organization that has any degree of integrity would report the news regardless of whether or not they have an issue with Larry Klayman or his clients. But you also won't see Sheriff Joe Arpaio on Fox News. You won't see Cliven Bundy. You won't see Dr. Jerome Corsi. You won't see people who actually stick their neck out in behalf of the American people at great risk. They just want things that are people that are safe, people that'll come on there and just say things and walk off, and there's no controversy. And that's why you see the same guests every night on Hannity. Now, this is important because I want you to understand this. And I know that sometimes I sound like a broken record. The reason that Fox News does these kinds of things, and Fox News has been a participant in whipping up fear with regard to the coronavirus. You're going to hear Judy MIKOVITS talk about it in the next segment, saying that it's not as severe as it's being portrayed, that Dr. Anthony Fauci is engaged in what in effect is a racketeering enterprise to make money off of vaccines that will be introduced this fall. But why is it, and ask yourself this question, it's huge, it's a huge question. Why is it that just about a week ago, we had these charts on Fox News and on MSNBC and on CNN showing people dying second by second. And all of a sudden, when you had the tragedy that occurred in Minneapolis, and then you had all the looting, mayhem, stealing, and killing of cops and wounding them and others, these networks, including Fox, had a, quote, better story to scare the American people. So you don't see anything about coronavirus anymore. They just shift to that because their modus operandi is to make money, to scare people enough that they'll watch the network, whether it's about a pandemic or whether it's about looting and a civil war literally in the United States, or whether it's about the scandal industry of what occurs in Washington, D.C. in the swamp. They have to jack it up to make the money, and they're making that money hand over fist, all of them, whether it's Fox, CNN, or MSNBC. And that's what's so important about what we do at Freedom Watch and Radium America. I've been saying this in my podcast, is that we tell you the truth. And listen to Judy MIKOVITS in the second and third segment. You're going to get the truth about the coronavirus and what's been going on, because we have no reason to lie. We're not here to make money. We're here to represent the interests of the American people. And that's super important. Now, notwithstanding the fact that I've got this oral argument at the Ninth Circuit this Monday, and I hope you do watch. It's in real time. If you just go to the website of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, you can actually watch that. Is that in the last week or so, I also had one with regard to Cliven Bundy and the appeal, if you can believe this, by the Trump administration of the dismissal of his indictment. Now, ask yourself this question. Why would the Trump administration be appealing the dismissal of an indictment by Cliven Bundy, or with regard to Cliven Bundy and his sons, Ryan, Ammon, Davey, and Mel, and another individual by the name of Ryan Payne, when in fact the president has been supportive of the Bundys? That's because our Justice Department doesn't even represent the President of the United States. It represents itself. And they're trying to protect themselves in the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is part of the Justice Department, because the judge in that case was forced to dismiss the indictment and also put on the record that there was gross prosecutorial abuse, lying to the court, suborning to perjury, and a whistleblower came forward who would have testified if the case had gone on longer by the name of Larry Wooten, that there was actually a kill list on the heads of the Bundys. This is what we're dealing with in the executive branch deep state. It works against the American people. It, frankly, is a threat to our very existence. And that's what we're hearing with regard to the coronavirus. Yes, China needs to be held accountable, communist China. They need to pay for the damage that they caused. And while maybe it's not as severe as the panic that has been whipped up by Fox News and the other cables with the help of people like Anthony Fauci, it still is severe. and it still has harmed the economy. And our entire economy now is on the ropes with 13% unemployment and probably more to follow, although there was a slight uptick just in the last month because things are starting to open up. But it's not going to get back to where it was. And so it's important that you support Freedom Watch and our class action against the Communist Chinese and against the Chinese Communist Party with our criminal complaint in The Hague, Holland, and our case in Jerusalem, Israel, and the other lawsuits that we have. Just last Friday, I was in court for Roy Moore, who was destroyed by the leftist media. So this hack senator was elected in Alabama, Doug Jones. And, I'm in court nearly every week on major issues because we are your Justice Department. And that's why we ask you to go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign up for our Justice League. As I've said many times, you are the superheroes. You are Batman. You are Wonder Woman. You are the Flash. You are Aquaman. We are the people of the United States. We are here to pretend, not to pretend rather, but to actually do things and not deceive. And that's why you need to rise up. And that's why you need to get up off the couch and turn off Fox News, turn off the other cables, get to work, join us in what we're doing at freedomwatchusa.org. See if you qualify for the citizens' class action case against China to pay for the damage, your loss of job, your loss of business, your health, which has been affected. See if you can help people like Kara Robles, who is actually going against Antifa and not just sitting there making statements. And I urge the President of the United States to pay attention to what we're doing. I don't think that he has, because Roger Stone has poisoned the well. He's defamed people like Dr. Jerry Corsi and me because he was fearful of what Corsi would testify at his criminal trial. Jerry never had any intent to harm Stone. But this is what we deal with. I'll be back with Judy MIKOVITS. But in the meantime, go to freedomwatchusa.org and support our very important work. Be right back.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with Judy MIKOVITS. She's been in the news a lot lately. She's worked with Anthony Fauci of the National Institute of Health. She's the author of a great book, Plague of Corruption. She's a PhD in biochemistry, and she has better knowledge than anyone as to what went on in that lab in Wuhan, China, and why it went on, and whether or not what was released there was a bioweapon. So I want to introduce you to Judy MIKOVITS, and tell us a little bit about yourself, Judy, and how you've come to the conclusion that the Chinese were up to no good in that lab in Wuhan, China, and how that happened.
Yeah, Larry, I'm, as you mentioned, I have a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology, and I worked for 21 years at the National Cancer Institute, part of the National Institute of Health, as you mentioned. They're at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland. So not only do they have the National Cancer Institute there, they have a biosafety level 4 facility from the U.S. Army Research Institute in Infectious Disease. And it was there as part of my work in the mid-'90s, my postdoctoral studies. My job was basically to adapt viruses to cell lines, to growth, so that you could study them. So it was in the similar kind of research as was done at Wuhan's biosafety level 4 facility, and that is as we isolate viruses and teach them how to grow better so that they don't kill the cells. I say teach that. You literally adapt them to cell line models to grow. So the reason that I have expertise, firsthand expertise, is what was going on in the Wuhan lab. Is those were the studies I did in the 90s with Ebola Ebola, the deadly Ebola Zaire strains, and trying to understand and study the mechanisms, which parts of the virus made it molecularly a pathogenic strain versus, a non-pathogenic strain. So that was the kind of research I was doing at Fort Detrick. And of course, the 2015 paper with the Wuhan lab said that the Chinese got the cell line, the Vero E6 monkey kidney cell line that we used to grow Ebola was the same line that was sent to the Wuhan lab originally from that Fort Detrick laboratory, and that was funded by Tony Fauci and the NIAID because the research was illegal to do those studies here between 2013 and 17.
Why is it that Fort Detrick does that kind of research? That's a military facility.
Correct. Prior to the National Cancer Institute being housed at Fort Detrick, it was for biowarfare. It was to understand, how viruses and pathogens kill in order theoretically to prevent them from doing so and prevent, develop, therapies as well as vaccines. That's what we were, told we were doing, is to prevent understand the pathogenesis, why they kill, in order that we can protect our troops, our military. It was a biowarfare site.
Now, it's been reported that the Obama administration gave a $3.7 million grant of American taxpayer money to that laboratory in Wuhan, China, from which the coronavirus emanates. Was that what you're referring to with regard to Dr. Fauci sending over the virus with money?
Correct. So he sent the cell lines that have other pathogenic viruses like HIV relative simian immune deficiency virus, SV40, the gamma retroviruses that we had discovered in 2009 to be deadly contagious cancer-causing viruses. Yes, Tony Fauci funded those studies, and the cell line that grows those viruses at Wuhan was not only sent from Fort Detrick. It was funded, again, in the Obama administration by NIAID funding.
Why would the United States send a deadly virus to the communist Chinese in their lab in Wuhan? Why would we do that?
Well, I can't think of a reason, especially when it was against the law because of the risk, to United States citizens doing this type of research. That's why it was against the law. Virologists like me, protested about doing these. It was called gain-of-function studies. So why would Tony Fauci go against the law and send?
We're going to break right here, Judy. We'll be right back with the next segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Kleeman.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Kleeman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
We're back with Judy MIKOVITS, and we were talking about why Tony Fauci, so to speak, to use his familiar first name. I think most Americans don't have the familiarity you have with him, or regrettably. Judy, you know a lot about him. Why that virus would be sent to the communist Chinese, I think we can pretty much figure it out. He probably was making money off of doing that to some degree. Is that a supposition, or is that possibly, why he was a proponent of doing that?
Well, he controls as the head of the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. He controls $6 billion of funding, and he holds patents for the HIV, the various aspects of the HIV virus. And I mentioned that the Vero E6 cell line has HIV virus in it and several strains of the simian immune deficiency virus, the monkey version, and several strains of the SARS coronavirus 2 were said to have HIV sequences. And so he would have detection patents for all the testing that's being done worldwide, and he would have therapeutic targets, being that HIV envelope protein and the GAG sequences that were found there by several laboratories reported in several strains.
Based upon what you know about the COVID-19 virus that was released in Wuhan, was it engineered, was it manufactured to make it more deadly once the virus was sent over from Fort Detrick?
Well, yeah, once the cell line was sent over from Fort Detrick carrying other viruses, clearly that manufacturing process, growing the SARS-CoV-2 in that cell line, clearly manufactured it to pick up other toxic pathogens. There's more there than simply the coronavirus. There are other retroviruses, there are other monkey viruses, and yes, it is several strains are recombinants that have the HIV, that is the SIV that came from that cell line. So yes, it's manufactured, and yes, the fact that they grew it in that cell line alone allows the recombination, as you could get new recombination events in as quickly as 2 weeks' time. So by the time you grow a 250-liter fermenter, which is how we grow these cell lines and make these viral stocks and make these testing stocks that are sent around the world, every single culture is different and can manufacture different strains.
Now, it's been reported that this virus travels because it's lighter than air. It's been aerosoled, for lack of a better word. Is that accurate? Is that why it spreads so easily, in part?
It spreads through droplets. It's not lighter than air. It has to live in water droplets. It's 30 nanomolars to 100 nanomolars, so that's extremely small. So yes, it doesn't have to be it can be in a microscopic water droplet, but it's actually not transmitted like measles is. So the 6-foot distancing is wrong. It's actually more transmitted in the larger droplets that only go 2 to 3 feet. Really, you have to sneeze or cough quite a bit. It's not necessarily lighter than air.
Does that help explain why the contamination has been much less than has been predicted by Dr. Fauci and others?
Yes, because the transmission is not, large amounts of viruses are not being coughed on or spit on or even, exposing other people. And so the simple fact of the matter is it never was that transmissible or dangerous, and healthy people breathing do not spread the virus. Really, it takes quite a lot. And when you're exposed in a natural way, in a water droplet, you get so few particles of virus from an infected person. And again, they have to be expressing particles, not RNA. RNA isn't what goes through the air, and that's what's tested for in this polymerase chain reaction. But these coronaviruses don't have editing function. So that is when they're grown in these large fermenters, they can't fix mistakes in the sequence, so they mutate very quickly, even in a single lots batch. So it's not this virus. There's many strains of this virus around the world, and again, the mutations suggest that it's actually becoming less pathogenic, not more, and that we've already had the height of the outbreak, and most people are simply now immune, and no vaccine is even needed.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. I know you have a strong opinion about vaccines and Anthony Fauci's role in those vaccines with patents, the possibility that he would profit greatly from vaccines. It's just been reported yesterday or maybe early today that there's one manufacturer, pharmaceutical manufacturer, says it's going to have literally hundreds of millions of vaccines available this fall. And, if you can give me your thoughts about that, and also why Fauci and the rest of them created this I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, just ratcheted up to the point that they tried to create mass panic. Is it all tied together to selling vaccines and making money? That's the bottom line.
Right. Absolutely. The bottom line absolutely is selling vaccines, and more than selling vaccines, mandating vaccines, where you have no choice but to take these untested, unsafe, highly toxic. And so the last 5 years have proven just how dangerous and how deadly these vaccines are, how contaminated, heavily contaminated they are with nanoparticles, heavy metals, toxic formaldehyde, glyphosate, Roundup, toxic adventitious agents, many viruses, microbes contaminating the vaccines, especially the flu vaccines and the coronavirus vaccines. Again, flu vaccines, polio vaccines, to the live viral vaccines, are highly dangerous. It's and toxic and clearly not developing immunity. So that's what this whole pandemic, as I call it quite fairly, is all about. It's the big detonate button because the world woke up in part through our book Plague of Corruption, but looking around the world and seeing the disease and seeing the failure of the program and revealing the criminal activity of Tony Fauci, our FDA, and our CDC. So, the criminal activity in our vaccine court, the liability-free compensation, the manufacturers literally no safety studies, no nothing for 30 or 40 years. And through a lot of hard work, from a lot of people, finally the government is waking up. So it's like, we just got caught. Better hit the detonate button and mandate vaccines so that everybody's sick and everybody's dead, and there's nothing we can do about it, as we won't have a republic or humanity if they inject a single another shot. And I mean the flu vaccines as well drove this COVID-19, and they will drive every epidemic and pandemic as they have since 1976, bird flu, swine flu, and even further, the influenza of 1957 and 8. The vaccines are driving the pandemics and the infections because they don't work and because they're crippling the immune systems of the American people and worldwide.
Is it your reasoned opinion, I'm asking you questions as if you were in court, as you may be at some point here, but is it your opinion that there's another way to prevent the spread of COVID-19 other than just letting it infect you, assuming you get within 3 feet and there are droplets? What can the populace do to insulate themselves from this short of a vaccine?
The first thing to say is short of a vaccine, the vaccines do not prevent transmission. You are literally injecting the blueprint for the virus in a nanoparticle, which means it can go in every cell. The vaccines do not prevent infection. They ameliorate or lessen disease. And that's true with every single flu season, every single flu vaccine. They don't prevent the spread of the strain. They're supposed to develop in you an immune response so that you don't get sick. So we know we don't need a vaccine because we know that 99% of the people who are exposed to or said to be infected with SARS-CoV-2 have no disease whatsoever and are healthy, and that means they've developed immunity, and that's the intention of a vaccine, is make sure that the virus doesn't cause severe disease, not prevent transmission. So yes, people are already immune. It's already been, regardless of whether it was manufactured. It's our healthy immune systems. Go out and get sunlight. Don't immune suppress yourself in a mask, because that's what a mask does. It will immune suppress you and activate your other dormant viruses. The social distancing is immune suppressive and causes inflammatory responses like depression, like suicide. The inflammation is the same cytokine storm trigger, inflammatory cytokines. So all we can do is go out, get healthy sunshine, get vitamin C, eat really clean food without GMOs, without Roundup, without toxins. Try to stay away from inflammatory insults, which is what vaccines are, so that you don't drive inflammation and drive the disease, because it's the vaccinated shed the viruses because they're live attenuated. And so the vaccine will drive, the flu vaccine will drive the next wave, because flu vaccines are contaminated with other animal coronaviruses, and we just talked about them recombining. So the problem is the failure of the vaccine program and the failure, the lies to the American people that a vaccine will prevent the spread, when actually type 1 interferons, the pre-exposure prophylaxis of something like hydroxychloroquine and type 1 interferons, which can be supplemented in food, good healthy food, vitamin A, vitamin D, A, D, K, and E. So those vitamins alone, selenium, zinc, minerals that are known to fight viral infections, all can prevent the spread of any upper respiratory infection.
So would it be smart for the American people to take multivitamins each day that contain what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's always been supplements. Yeah, that's always been a good way. So, supplements to support immunity, especially vitamin D, A, D, K, and E. Yeah, multivitamin, a good quality multivitamin. It's a nutritional supplement. Pro-immune is glutathione, a formulation that you can make glutathione, which is your major intracellular antioxidant. Healthy vitamin C, ascorbic acid, rosehip, essential oils, tea tree oil, colloidal silver. These are the things you can have even in your soap that are anti-infectious around your house, instead of the toxic sprays, instead of the toxic chemicals, because when you're wearing a mask and you're breathing the toxic chemicals, you're doing more damage to your upper respiratory tract. So the masks are very dangerous. The gloves are very, you don't need gloves. They spread the disease. We need natural immunity, natural exposure, natural boosting, and good old-fashioned, soap and water is essentially all we need every year. And this is no different in any flu season. Coronaviruses are mild upper respiratory infections, otherwise known as the common colds. And there's no vaccine that's ever been made to an RNA virus that is safe and effective and shown to be safe and effective, where the benefit outweighs the risk. None, not in 40 years. And I've challenged Tony Fauci and anybody else to show me one piece of data, and they don't have any.
So,
in fact,
so basically, Judy, we've got about 15 seconds. I'm going to have you back next week with Kent, your co-author, if you're willing to do that. But this is basically a racketeering enterprise on the part of Tony Fauci to make money. That's what it's about.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Judy. God bless you for everything you've done and for exposing the truth. We'll have you back next week if you're free, and stay safe.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, fellow patriots. Things are never what they appear to be. We have riots in the streets. We have policemen being shot, harmed. We have innocent businesses being robbed, whether it's in Beverly Hills or whether it's in New York City on Fifth Avenue, doesn't matter where. And we don't get the truth. Now, the one thing that the left and right have in common is that neither of them believe a word the government says anymore. And that's why there's this tremendous pent-up anger and tension. For many months, we have been sent to the gulag, our own homes, in effect imprisoned, not being able to do much of anything other than maybe go play a round of golf if you happen to live in that part of the country where they allow that. But that was few and far between. But that helps explain, coupled with the death of the African-American fellow in Minneapolis, whose name I can never remember because he's got two first names, and may his soul rest in peace. That's why you have this tremendous explosion and tension, because of the lack of trust with the government, and that goes for all races, all colors, creeds, and religions. And that's where we are today, and that's why we are in effect in a revolutionary state. Now, forces of the left and far left, radicals, are using that to tear the country apart, to destroy it, to take it down to ground zero, because they hope to build it back up like the Bolsheviks did in 1917 in Russia, when they turned it into the Soviet Union, into a socialist communist dictatorship. That's what they want. Make no mistake about it. So we people who are conservatives, libertarians, people of faith, others, we have to push back. We have to do it peacefully and legally. We also need to have self-defense. And therefore, the Second Amendment is extremely important, not to use it offensively, but be prepared for the time when they're going to be camping, these ultra-leftists and radicals, right in front of your house and demanding that you turn over the keys to your house and your car and leave. That's going to happen. And it's going to probably happen sooner than you think, unless we fight back. And that's why you need Freedom Watch. And it's not just the forces of evil within our own nation being destroyed from within, but who is likely funding all of this civil disobedience, which reaches the point of violence, which is destructive, which is harming people, which is killing people and maiming them. I'll bet you it's the communist Chinese again, it's the Russians, it's the Iranians, it's George Soros in all likelihood through various groups, people like that, because they want to destroy this country. And your line of defense, the only way to do it peacefully and legally, frankly, is Freedom Watch. I know that I'm tooting my own horn here, but it's true. We try. We stick our neck out. We're not afraid. We take on the communist Chinese. We take on race baiters and vigilantes and con men like Al Sharpton and like Louis Farrakhan. You know, Louis Farrakhan's been advocating killing cops now for years, and several have been killed now. I had a lawsuit in Dallas in that matter. And this is something which we need to address, and we need to do it. So I want you to join our Justice League. My former group, Judicial Watch, they just mostly get documents. That gets fitting on Fox News. They want the documents. Gee, isn't this great? You're exposing this. But, you know, it's good to expose things. No problem with that. We do that at Freedom Watch, too. But it's what you do with the documents. You know, when you pick up a deck of cards, you got to be prepared to play poker, not to put them down on the table and tell somebody to take over the game yourself. That's what Judicial Watch does. It goes over and says, government, you do my job. When I ran Judicial Watch, that was not the case. We sought to do it ourselves, and we, the people, must now do it ourselves with the grace of God. And that's what we do at Freedom Watch, because Freedom Watch does today what I used to do at Judicial Watch. Make no mistake about it. And we try hard. So join us. Join us not just with regard to the COVID-19 class action or our criminal case in The Hague or our various clients who are fighting tyranny by the deep state, both in the legislative and executive branch. And we're also fighting corrupt judges. But also we're fighting forces from within and forces from without. And we have our citizens' grand juries that will hold the James Comeys accountable, that will hold Clapper and Brennan and Obama and Biden. We need to ourselves mete out citizen justice peacefully and legally. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, join our cause, contribute with tax-deductible contributions, get up off the couch, do something constructive, not be entertained by the likes of Sean Hannity on Fox News. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, stay safe. God bless you and your family, and God bless America. Thank you for listening to me.